So let's talk about cheap rifles versus expensive rifles, and you can kind of cater this towards firearms in general. So we got two sides of the coin here. One side is the side that says get the most expensive, high quality stuff you can afford. Uh, Even if it means taking out credit cards or whatever, do whatever you got to do to get the most high speed, low drag stuff out there available on the market. And the other side of the coin is get something that works and then take that extra money and spend it on training. Uh, and there's good arguments on both sides of that coin. But I'm going to throw my cent and a half into the mix here and just kind of go a little bit of a different direction. First off, this is just my opinion, and people can spend their money however they like. This is the United States. Everybody's free. Everybody has opinions. I'm just doing an unsolicited video sharing my opinion on it. So kind of take it with a grain of salt. It is what it is. Do what you wish and be happy. That's the key thing. Enjoy your freedom. Enjoy that hard-earned money in the way that makes you the most happy. That's what's important. And I'm always going to give you a thumbs up for doing so. But here's my opinion. If you're wanting, this is more on the serious side. I'm not talking about firearms just as a recreation, just going to the range and going on the gun boards and sharing Instagram pictures and all that stuff. I'm talking about this is the more serious side. Which this is what the conversation always leans to when we're talking about training versus gear and all that good stuff. So if you're going to be very serious with firearms and you're wanting to better yourself, forget about the gear a little bit. Forget about the firearm a little bit. You want to focus more so on the training. And I'm not talking about the training that you see on Instagram and YouTube. While it does have its good merits and there's places in the military and law enforcement and even in the civilian sector for that type of training, I'll tell you right now, not all training is just, okay, move through and shoot a lot of targets and multiple targets at the same time and huge round counts in a shorter period of time and mag dumps and mag changes. People forget that type of training is good for learning the mechanics of things, but it's not necessarily a tactics-driven type deal. There are tactics taught at those courses, especially when we're talking about vehicle training, training around vehicles and such, and then, of course, inside structures and whatnot. Sure, there is some, but you have to keep in mind, especially when you're teaching to the private sector, it's a business, okay? And you want to stay... in business, so you have to teach something that's useful and a little bit flashy as well. So some of the stuff that you see might be awesome, but it might necessarily, and forgive my heater in the background, hopefully you can still hear me well, it's not necessarily maybe the best thing for you. When you're gonna do training and whatnot, you have to almost be kind of an academic. And it sometimes means going over the boring stuff. Cover versus concealment, angles, slowing down, looking realistically at your life and what you want to do with your self-defense training. What are you looking to accomplish? And there may be a lot of things that you need to do that's not necessarily glamorous or really cool, like you see on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and all that good stuff, but it might be something that's needed. So, along with that, when you look at your gear, look at what works for you. This rifle is a cheaper rifle, okay? And this thing is not like a Knight's Armor or a BCM or a Noveske or any of that high-speed, low-drag stuff, okay? And it doesn't try to pretend to be one of those rifles. I don't doubt that if I took this rifle and just put thousands of rounds through it in one day or in a couple of days and just ran it hard and put it away wet, I don't doubt that it would break. It probably would. I will say this though, a lot of people tend to run the AR-15 harder than what the original design was meant for. That's kind of an unpopular truth. Rifles are rifles. Just because you have a 30 round magazine or 20 round magazine or 40 round magazine or what have you attached to that rifle doesn't mean it automatically becomes an automatic rifle or a crew served weapon. I think people tend to focus a little bit too much on that. And there's a time and a place for that sort of thing. But I think that when you train, you want to get back to the basics. Practice putting that one round at a time into a target accurately. And until you can do that accurately, don't worry about going all rapid fire and crazy until, again, until you can be accurate, until you can put one round into a target. And that's at any position, at various ranges, various situations, all that good stuff. Even in the military, when we were back in my military days, when we trained in the field, we even stressed, hey, your M4s and M16s, while they are capable of a high rate of fire, that is not what they are designed to do. And it's kind of twofold. Number one, you don't want to stress out the gun, because that is such a thing. AR-15s have weak points. All guns have weak points. AR-15 weak points, for example, gas block, gas tube, gas key. Those are some examples right there. Under hard use, those components can fail. Also the bolt. The bolt can fail as well. Your extractor can fail as well. There are things that can fail when you put them through hard use. Well, you don't necessarily want that. So you save that hard use for times when you need them. Other times, maybe you don't need to go hard with your rifle. Along with that, if you're putting a lot of rounds through your gun, and this is kind of a tactics type thing, let's delve into the self-defense prepper side of the house here. I don't do this a whole lot, but let's talk about what preppers and survivalists and stuff talk about. So it's without rule of law, and you're surviving. And when you're engaging an opposing force, if you train yourself to go balls out and expend a lot of rounds, you're not going to have a lot of fight. Typically, if you carry around 200 rounds, maybe 300 rounds on you, that's about the max you can carry and still be a little bit effective, because you have to look at your other support gear you have on you. If you weigh yourself down too much, you're just going to tire yourself out. You're not going to be that effective as far as movement goes. So if you train to put these high round counts down, just a mental note, you're going to be out of fight very fast, and you're probably going to give yourself away. There's a time for volume of fire, suppression by fire, all that stuff. There's a time and a place for all that, but it's not every time. You might be more beneficial of sending a couple shots off and then retreating into a hidden location or whatnot. Anyway, that's kind of veering off into that, and that's not really what this video is about. It's more based on, cheap rifles versus expensive rifles. So I wanted to do this video to just kind of get you to think a little bit. It's okay to get the expensive stuff. Realize that everything can break. It doesn't matter if you spent $4,000 or $5,000 on a rig or $300 on a rig. Everything can break. It just depends on what you got going on. And just be realistic with what the product expectations are. There's nothing wrong with buying a $300, $400 rifle. Just don't expect it to be as robust as a $3,000 rifle of the same type. You just got to be a little bit realistic with it and train accordingly. I'll tell you right now, unpopular truth, you don't need to go to a carbine course to be trained. I'll tell you that right now. You do not need to go to, it's good to do that, but it's hard to do. Think about it. Realistically, it's hard to go to a carbine course, and it's very round intensive. You're kind of, it can be a pain because your training time, depending on how the course is set up, the good courses are set up where you get a lot of trigger time and you're learning for a good amount of the time, but sometimes you're not. It just depends on how the course is, and that can be kind of a frustration. Most of your training should be done at home. You can do it at home. You could use online resources. You could do simple things. Practicing positional basic rifle shooting is an awesome skill that nobody ever does. Or I shouldn't say that, but not a lot of people do, because they're more in favor of the tactical speed reloads, transitions to pistols. At least is what I'm seeing on YouTube and Instagram. The so-called running and gunning, running from point to point, and then shooting targets and this and that and the other thing, shooting from standing, shooting from kneeling. But if you focus a lot of your time on positional shooting, do some standing, do some kneeling, do some sitting, do some prone, modified prone, shooting around cover and concealment, knowing what continuity of fire is and how to apply that. And I'll tell you right now, continuity of fire doesn't necessarily mean firing fast. It's more has to do with how accurately you can fire and what's appropriate for the situation. There's a lot of things you can do, and when you focus on that stuff, you'll find yourself to be a lot more well-rounded versus focusing on cheap rifle versus expensive rifle, Knight's Armament versus Bear Creek Arsenal, or Taurus versus Glock, or High Point versus every other pistol known on the planet. It's just, if you focus on that too much, what's going to happen is you're going to develop a sheep type attitude. And I've seen this, and I hope I don't make too many people mad at this, but I lurk on AR15.com, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know that forum. And if you go through the history of that forum over the years, they tend to follow trends like sheep do. First it'll be, wow, Rock Island Armory, or Rock River Arms rather, sorry. Rock River Arms is awesome. Nope, they suck. Springfield Armory is great. Nope, now they suck. BCM is great. Well, there's a few issues with their rifles. Knight's Armament is great. Well, now they're too expensive. Colt is great. Well, now Colt sucks. It's just a big pack mentality. You're going to end up wasting a lot of money if you're trying to keep up over the years. Remember, you're not trying to make somebody else happy. And a lot of people tend to do that. It's for status or whatnot. Look at what you're doing. Look at how you're doing it and how that can benefit you. I do have some expensive firearms, but I got no problems going into a bad situation with this thing. I mean, for crying out loud, it's by some people's definition, this has everything going wrong against it. It's a carbine length. It's a Bear Creek Arsenal, so it's a budget AR-15. It has magazines which could be spotty at best, and it's a 7.62 by 39 and an AR-15 design. So, but I know this particular rifle. I've shot this particular rifle. I actually develop kind of what tactics I would use would be in perfect combination with this type of rifle. For example, I'm not going to use tactics well suited for an automatic rifleman when I have this rifle, because I don't have an automatic rifle. I don't have a 249. I don't have an HK. I don't have any of that fancy stuff that's capable of select fire. I have this thing. So my tactics will revolve around this. So kind of look at it that way if you get what I'm trying to say. Avoid being the pack following. Because you see it on both sides. You'll see the guys that buy the cheapest stuff, but they don't get any training, so they're not doing well off. And you'll see the guys that buy the most expensive gear they could find, and they take out loans, and they have all this night vision. They've got all this cool Gucci stuff, but they have no idea how to use it correctly. That's a bad thing as well. So, in any case, enough yammering out of me. I'm going on, I'm over 13 minutes now. Ooh, boy. Anyway, I hope you get what I'm trying to say. You want to have good quality, so you're not wasting your money. You don't necessarily need the highest, most expensive stuff, unless that's your thing. If that's your thing and you can support it, go for it. And if you're really wanting to be serious in the firearms world, forget what everybody else is saying and look at what can you do to increase your survivability. What type of training can you take to make yourself better and to increase the survivability of you and your loved ones and your friends. That's the bottom line. So anyway, feel free to put your thoughts in the comment section below, all that good stuff. Let me know what you think, good or bad. Again, that's just my opinion. So make sure everybody's staying safe out there and also stay sane in these times.